The family sat in silence, tears streaming down their faces as they prepared to say goodbye. In one final act of love, the tiny puppy wrapped his fragile paws around his owner's neck, holding on as if he knew this was the last embrace. The room was heavy with grief, every heartbeat echoing the unbearable truth they were about to lose him. But just as the vet lifted the syringe ready to end the suffering, something caught his eye. A faint rhythm, a flicker of life, something unusual that no one expected. And in that single moment, everything changed. Before we begin, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And truly, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. I love seeing how far our stories can travel. The Carter household had always been filled with laughter since Buddy, their 6-month-old German Shepherd, came into their lives. Sophie and Liam adored him, their footsteps always echoing with his playful barks. But lately something was wrong. The puppy who once bounded to the door now lay motionless, his eyes dull, his breathing shallow. Olivia sat on the couch, cradling him in her arms. "He feels colder today," she whispered, panic edging her voice. Ethan hovered nearby, his jaw tight, refusing to admit the dread building inside him. The children sat close, their little hands trembling as they stroked Buddy's fur. Every wheezing breath from the pup felt like a countdown. The air in the room grew heavy, pressing down on them like a storm waiting to break. Sophie buried her face against her father's sleeve, whispering, "Please don't let him go, Daddy." Ethan's voice cracked. "We'll take him to Dr. Wilson first thing in the morning." But as Buddy whimpered softly, wrapping his weak paws around Olivia's wrist, it felt like morning might be too late. The once joyous sound of his bark was gone, replaced by a silence that screamed louder than words. Hope was slipping and fear was closing in. The room was heavy with silence as Olivia clutched Sophie and Liam close, while Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Buddy lay motionless in Olivia's lap, his small body rising and falling with shallow, uneven breaths. Every corner of the clinic's quiet room seemed to echo with the weight of goodbye. Dr. Harris entered softly, carrying a tray with the syringe that would end Buddy's suffering. His voice was calm, compassionate, but it only deepened the family's sorrow. "Take your time," he said, gently preparing the injection. Sophie buried her face into Ethan's side, whispering through tears, "I don't want him to go, Dad." Liam's tiny hand stroked Buddy's ear, hoping for even the smallest response. Then it happened. With what little strength he had left, Buddy lifted his head and pressed it against Ethan's chest, his paws trem. Everyone froze. Olivia gasped, tears spilling freely, while Sophie whispered, "He's saying goodbye." But Dr. Harris suddenly leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. The steady thump of Buddy's heartbeat through the stethoscope made his brow furrow. "Wait," he murmured, "something's not right." Dr. Harris froze mid-motion, the syringe hovering just above his tray. He pressed his stethoscope firmly against Buddy's tiny chest, his brow furrowing deeper with every second. Olivia held her breath, terrified to hope, while Ethan tightened his arms protectively around Buddy. "This doesn't sound like organ failure," the vet murmured, his voice trailing off. Sophie's tear-stained eyes widened. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Dr. Harris adjusted the stethoscope and motioned for Ethan to listen. Reluctantly, Ethan leaned in, pressing his ear near Buddy's chest. His eyes widened in disbelief. The heartbeat wasn't weak or fading. It was uneven, yes, but strong, defiant, like a drum refusing to stop. "This isn't goodbye," Dr. Harris said firmly now, his tone shifting from sorrow to urgency. "I suspect it's not organ failure at all. Something else is obstructing his breathing, something we can treat." The family blinked, caught between shock and fragile hope. Olivia's voice trembled. "Are you saying he might survive?" The vet nodded sharply. "Yes, but we don't have much time. He's weak and every second counts." He pressed the emergency call button on the wall. A nurse hurried in, wheeling equipment. The atmosphere in the room flipped, no longer heavy with despair, but charged with action. Ethan bent low, whispering against Buddy's ear, "Hold on, boy, you're stronger than this." Sophie and Liam clung to each other, watching as Buddy was lifted carefully onto a stretcher. His paw twitched, still reaching for Ethan as if he understood. For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt her tears shift from grief to hope. Against all odds, maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of a fight Buddy could still win. The doors to the emergency room swung shut with a heavy thud, leaving Olivia, Ethan, Sophie, and Liam stranded in the sterile silence of the waiting area. The family collapsed onto the stiff chairs, their hands intertwined like lifelines. Sophie buried her face into Olivia's shoulder, her sobs muffled. Liam clutched his father's sleeve, whispering, "He's gonna be okay, right, Dad? Buddy's strong." Ethan nodded quickly, though his eyes betrayed the fear gnawing at him. "He's a fighter," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Inside, the muffled sounds of beeping machines and hurried footsteps carried through the hallway. Dr. Harris's calm but firm voice echoed occasionally, giving clipped instructions to the nurses. Every sound seemed louder than it should, every second dragging like an eternity. Olivia stared at the clock on the wall. 5 minutes felt like 50. She kept replaying Buddy's last look in her arms, those pleading eyes, the tiny paws curling around Ethan's neck. The thought that this might truly be their final memory twisted her heart. A sudden clatter from down the corridor made them jump. The doors remained closed, leaving them in limbo. Sophie wiped her eyes and whispered, "What if he doesn't make it?" Olivia cupped her daughter's face. "We don't give up on family. Buddy isn't giving up, and neither will we." Time blurred. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours until finally the door creaked open. Dr. Harris stepped out his surgical mask, hanging loosely around his neck, his eyes tired but steady. For a breathless moment, no one dared ask. Then he spoke, his voice carrying both exhaustion and hope. "He's stable. The blockage is gone. Buddy has a fighting chance." The weight of despair shattered. Olivia gasped. Ethan's shoulders sagged. Sophie and Liam cried out in relief. For the first time in weeks, hope didn't feel fragile. It felt real. The night after Buddy's emergency surgery felt endless. Olivia and Ethan stayed awake on the stiff hospital chairs, their eyes locked on the glass window of the recovery room. Inside, Buddy lay motionless on a padded bed, an oxygen mask fitted gently over his muzzle. Tubes and monitors surrounded him, their rhythmic beeping, the only reassurance that life still pulsed within his fragile frame. Sophie pressed her palms against the glass, whispering softly, as if her voice could reach him. "Please, Buddy, come back to us." Liam sat curled against Ethan's side, clutching the little toy ball Buddy used to chase in the backyard. His silence was heavy, the kind only children carry when they're too young to put their fear into words. Dr. Harris checked in every hour, his calm presence anchoring the family's storm of emotions. "His vitals are steady," he explained gently, "but he's weak. The next 24 hours are critical." Morning crept in, painting soft light across the recovery ward. Then, a small miracle. Buddy's tail twitched. Just once, faint but undeniable. Sophie gasped, her eyes widening. "Mom, did you see that?" Olivia pressed her hands to her mouth, tears spilling as the shepherd's amber eyes fluttered open, clouded with exhaustion, yet alive. The nurse allowed them inside one at a time. Olivia knelt beside him, first brushing her fingers through his fur. "You're stronger than all of us, Buddy," she whispered. Ethan followed, placing a trembling hand on Buddy's paw. The children leaned close, whispering promises of games, walks, and endless love. Buddy's breathing steadied with each familiar voice. Though frail, his gaze softened as if reminding them that he wasn't done fighting. For the first time in weeks, the Carter family felt whole again. Hope had found its way back into their hearts. 2 weeks later, the Carter household looked and felt alive again. The spring sun poured through the living room windows as Olivia carefully opened the front door. Behind her, Buddy padded in slowly, his steps, still a little unsteady, but full of determination. Sophie and Liam darted past her, cheering, their laughter echoing down the hall. "Welcome home, Buddy," Sophie exclaimed, dropping to her knees to hug him. Liam placed the toy ball at his paws, whispering, "I saved this for you." Buddy wagged his tail stronger this time and nudged the ball gently, sending it rolling across the floor. It wasn't a full chase yet, but it was enough to make the children erupt with joy. Ethan stood nearby, arms crossed over his chest, a rare smile breaking across his face. "He's a miracle," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. In the kitchen, Olivia placed Buddy's special meal in a clean bowl, her hands trembling slightly. Watching him eat again, truly eat, brought tears she didn't bother to hide. Every crunch of kibble was a reminder that their nightmare had turned into a second chance. That night, the family gathered on the couch, Buddy curled between Sophie and Liam, his head resting on Olivia's lap. Ethan reached over to scratch behind his ears, whispering, "You brought us back together, Buddy." The house no longer felt heavy with dread. It pulsed with warmth, laughter, and gratitude. Buddy, once at the edge of goodbye, was now at the heart of their home, stronger with each passing day. For For the Carters, the experience had changed everything. They had learned that love, persistence, and hope could overcome even the darkest moments. And as Buddy drifted into peaceful sleep, they knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just survival, it was a new beginning. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. Sometimes it feels like hope is slipping away, and the weight of goodbye is too heavy to bear. But Buddy's story reminds us of something powerful. Even at the edge of despair, miracles can unfold when love refuses to give up. The Carters walked into that veterinary room believing they were about to lose their puppy forever. Yet, because of one small moment of awareness and the courage to act quickly, Buddy was given a second chance. More than survival, it became a story of healing for Buddy and for the family who loved him. In our own lives, we often face moments when it feels easier to surrender than to fight. But sometimes, just holding on a little longer, just believing in that faint heartbeat of hope, can change everything. Buddy's wagging tail, his joyful bark, and his second chance at life became more than a family's blessing. They became a reminder that love, perseverance, and faith can transform even the darkest chapters into stories of light. So the next time life feels overwhelming, remember, Buddy. Remember that sometimes when everything seems lost, it's really the beginning of something new.